We would like to welcome the Executive Director of the Anzisha Prize, Mr. Josh Adler, for a keynote address.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Jesse and Tanatse. So again, on behalf of African Leadership Academy and MasterCard Foundation, I'd really like to welcome you here today. It's been very validating for us to see interest in this critical conversation about the transition from school or university directly into entrepreneurship. And I look forward to really great talks and conversations. I wanted to explore a little bit about why I think we're all here. Today's theme is Age Matters, and you'll see that run throughout the day. But ultimately, I'm still learning. Thank you. I think the reason we're all here is because many of us are at the front line of what is a global opportunity crisis for young people, and we're all trying to figure out what to do. And I think the most terrifying realization I've had in my 7 years now at African Leadership Academy is that even for the most talented young people, there is an opportunity crisis. I get to work with the most amazing young people from across the continent at ALA, truly superb potential. And even they have a crisis of opportunity, be that for careers, entrepreneurship, where to study, or otherwise. There are just simply, the opportunity set is not growing, and the number of young people who can access that limited opportunity set is growing exponentially. There is another reason I think we're all here today, and that's I think there's an attitude or a behavior crisis amongst adults. Essentially, this fact will be repeated many times today, but every year over 8 million young adults or teenagers are going to enter the labor force without much hope of finding an opportunity for work. Despite this narrative of experience needed before you can access any opportunity pervades, right? And I think that's what we're really here to talk about. How is that still possible? If that is true, it's not to say that, of course, you definitely need experience to access certain opportunities, but it can't be the only path to gaining experience, right? So we're going to look at that today. There is one group of people, however, who do not feel this way, and that's very young people themselves. From running the Anzisha Prize for the last few years, I think what we've realized is that the people who are most willing to hire 20-year-olds are 23-year-olds. And that's something that we wanted to explore. And essentially, that's the essence of the conversation that we're starting today. What does a view of the future look like if very young Africans hire their friends, right? They pursue entrepreneurship as a career. We think that this scenario is desirable, but is it possible? We want to explore that with all the different stakeholders. What is the role of parents, teachers, etc.? And we're going to launch later today the Anzisha scenario, which is a piece of research that will hopefully guide this conversation over the coming year. What does that scenario look like? So, many of you here are friends of African Leadership Academy and know our journey. Many of you are new to our little family. And I've always loved the simplicity of the original idea. Our founders said there's a leadership crisis where we need a generation of ethical, committed, skilled leaders who will not only deliver peace but economic prosperity. And the tool that they chose to intervene in the leadership crisis was a school for high potential young Africans, and that's African Leadership Academy. And we're now 10 years old. We celebrated our 10th birthday last year. We have over 1,000 graduates in all sectors. 177 of them have started ventures, which I think is particularly pertinent for today. But people like Eddie Oketch in the top right has pursued a career in politics. He competed or contested the national elections in Kenya last year. Belinda Monemo from Zimbabwe has started a network of private schools. So, where is Kofi? I'd actually like you to stand up and wave to everybody. So this is, I know there are a lot of big lights, but this is actually an informal gathering. So Kofi Osman from MasterCard Foundation is here today, and he personally, as well as the institution, shares our belief that everyone deserves the opportunity to learn and prosper. And they're very excited to support a platform where we start to talk about this transition from school and university directly to work. and entrepreneurship. And you'll hear Kofi later on a panel today. So we've been running the Anzisha Prize, as I mentioned, since 2011. And the idea is, again, quite simple. We would identify stories of very young entrepreneurship and celebrate them with the hope that other young Africans would follow in those footsteps. And I'll explore these pillars in a minute. But in that time, we found 102 remarkable stories from 32 different African countries. And they've gone on to create jobs and have their stories amplified in the media to the tune of millions of dollars. I think the most powerful way, though, to explain what Anzisha can do is to talk about a particular country in Madagascar. So Madagascar, as many of you will know, has a population of 25 million people, 3/4 of which live on less than $2 a day in terms of their income. So in 2016, we had our first fellow from Madagascar for the Anzisha Prize. His name was Tahina. He had a remarkable agro-processing business. He made cheese, lots and lots of cheese. And the business was remarkable to the point where he won the prize that year. And what is phenomenal about what's happened in Madagascar is that Anzisha has been tied into the fabric of the narrative of youth entrepreneurship in that country. The president actually either welcomes them back or sends them off when they go to the Anzisha Prize to compete. The media have followed the stories of our fellows dramatically, and every year we've had significantly strong applicants from Madagascar for the prize. Nomina in the top right there, second from the right, is another agriculture entrepreneur from Madagascar who applied after seeing Tahina's story, and she runs a really successful fruit juice business with some friends. So we've been very quietly doing some research at African Leadership Academy as the Anzisha Prize program. For anyone who's visited, you'll know that African Leadership Academy is an incredibly diverse and unique campus. You've got students from almost every African country in any given year, with almost every language and background represented there. So we've been working quite hard to figure out what is the best way to enable an entrepreneurial learning economy. How do you simulate entrepreneurship at high schools, particularly in boarding schools? Because there are many boarding schools across the continent. So we've been trying to think about how you fit that into the timetable, how do you allow students to trade at night without supervision, what sort of curriculum support is needed. And there's been a significant investment in the technology platform that would support a learning environment like this. And I'm proud to say our partner from All Access are here today, Raphael, I see him in the back, but you can go and have a look at something called the Anzisha Prize EcoSim, which stands for Economy Simulator, and it's a cashless peer-to-peer trading environment for students at schools that allows them to trade safely, but also for the school to deal with all the governance and other things that it would need. And I'd encourage you to go and have a look at what we've built with them, and it's now available for other schools to access. Two years ago, a young woman by the name of Victoria, who was 17 at the time, was one of the strongest applicants for the prize from Nigeria that year. And her parents wouldn't let her come unless one of them could come with for the accelerator week before the prize. We thought that was a perfectly reasonable request, so her father, Babatunde, joined her. And they had this remarkable experience, as did we, as they went through the process of being accelerated for the prize. And the penny started to drop for us on parents. And you'll now see in your bags, you've got our first book on parenting the boss. So Victoria and her father, Babatunde, are featured in there. Daniel, who's also here, and his family are featured in the book. And we think parents are the forgotten stakeholder in this whole entrepreneurship ecosystem story. So we look forward to collaborating with them and other kinds of stakeholders in the same way, teachers, etc. So back to why we're here, I mentioned a number of crises. I think there's a smaller one, maybe we can call it an opportunity, but it's about collaboration. I think there's a number of institutions across the continent that have been doing amazing work in education, entrepreneurship, etc. But we're all about 10 to 15 years old. I would argue we're institutional teenagers. We've been playing really well in our lane, focused on our work, doing what we do. We need to start dating, right? And that's what this conference is supposed to kick off. It's about the interaction between certain things, the transition between school and university and the world, and the entrepreneurship world is the intersection where all of these things meet. So who are you in this story? What are you going to do around very young entrepreneurship, and what can we collectively do differently if we think about entrepreneurship as a career? That's what today is about, and that's what we're kicking off in our campaign. So welcome again to the inaugural Very Young Entrepreneur Education and Acceleration Summit. And I hope we have a really, really enjoyable day. Thank you.